Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Slauson, one of your Algebra 2 teachers, and I am going to walk you through ICAN 11 Attempt 1. So the first thing I want you guys to notice is that this ICAN is going to be a little different. We're going to have Level 1 and Level 2. So as we kind of go through each section, you will have the option to complete Level 1, or you have the option to complete Level 1 and Level 2. So I guess we'll kind of figure that out as we go through. So one section is this, where we're dealing with exponents. If you just want to pass, you need to complete Level 1. If you want the A or B, then you have to complete Level 1 and Level 2. When you get to our next section, where there's another option of Level 1 or Level 2, you don't have to repeat what you did in the section above. So when you get to this section, if you only want to do Level 1, that's okay. But if you do Level 2, then you also have to do Level 1. I hope that makes sense. So let's go ahead and get started. My suggestion to all of you is take any base and make the invisible exponents visible. So I'm going to give the y an exponent, the 3 an exponent, and when I go to number 2, I'm going to give that an exponent, this 2 an exponent, and this y an exponent. The first thing I suggest you do is get rid of the parentheses. So number 1 doesn't have parentheses, number 2 does. So since number 1 doesn't have parentheses, what I like to do is organize it into what I call my houses. And my numbers will go in my first house, and my x's will go in the second house. And as I organize it, when I see a negative exponent, I'm going to move it. And I realize, just as I said that, there is a second letter. So let me make another little wall here. And my x's can go here, and my y's can go here. You can put these in any order, it doesn't matter. So starting with, I go left to right, so my first y to the first, will go here. Got that one done. X to the negative 4, because it's negative, will move to the bottom. This y to the 4th will go here, so I'm just kind of going through. My 3 to the 1st will go here. Oh, yep, down on the bottom. And my x to the negative 4, because it's negative, will move to the top. And then instead of having one big messy problem, I have 3 smaller problems. So in my first house, there's really nothing to do. The 3 will just stay down there. In my second house, hopefully you realize that these will just cancel each other out. And then in my final house, when the exponents or the bases are right next to each other, I add the exponents. And here is my final answer. So with number 2, the first thing I'm going to do is, again, I see parentheses. I'm going to get rid of these parentheses by distributing exponent to exponent. So my numerator is going to become 2 to the 4th and x to the 12th. I'm multiplying the exponents. Now I'm going to go ahead and make my house. And I have numbers. Oops. And x's and y's. So here go the numbers, here can go the x's, and here can go the y's. So just working left to right, 2 to the 4th. I'm just going to go ahead and put 2 to the 4th. That's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. X to the 12th. In my denominator, 2 to the 1st is 2. X to the 4th will stay where it is. Y to the negative 1 will move to the top. This other y to the 1st will stay in the bottom, and my x to the negative 2 will move to the top. And now, again, I have 3 houses to clean up. So 16 over 2, that's 16 divided by 2, so that's 8. When I go to my house with the x's, what happens is my numerator turns into 14 x's, and then I can take my x to the 14th and x to the 4th and subtract those exponents, so that's x to the 10th. And I know that those 10 x's are going to go in the top because I have more x's in the numerator than I do in the denominator. And then finally, in my last house, these y's can just cancel out, and then I'm done. If you want to put a denominator, you can put a 1, but you don't need it. All right, now we're getting into fractions. So level 1, you get the C. Level 2 gets you the option for the A or B. So you do have to realize that you're adding, subtracting, and multiplying fractions. So this one actually didn't have any multiplying, but that's okay. I would still make my houses. I don't have anything to move, so 2 and 3 will go in my first house. V to the 1/3 and V to the 1st, there's its invisible exponent, will go in the second house. So as far as the 2 and the 3 go, that just becomes a 6. But what I'm going to have to do with these exponents is add them. So just a little note of where I'm going to do my fractions. I'm going to have to take 1/3 plus 1. I can turn it into a fraction by putting it over 1, and then I want a common denominator when I add fractions. That common denominator is 3, so I'm going to multiply my other fraction by 3. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And once you get your common denominators, you can just add them up, and you get 4/3. So when I'm done, I have v to the 4/3 power, and there is number 2. So when I get to number 4, again, I'm going to do a little organizing. I do have levels. So 3 will go here, v to the 2/3 moves down, 4 will go here, v to the 3/2 will stay there, this 3 goes there, and this v stays there. All right, first thing I notice in my first house is that these 3's can cancel out. So as I start to go for my final answer, I get a 4. And then what I'm going to have to do in the other one is put these together first. So I'm going to add these up. So here's my little area for doing my fraction work. I'll have to take 2/3, excuse me, plus my 1. Again, I'm going to want common denominators. That common denominator is 3. So I'm going to multiply these both by 3. So now I'll have 2/3 plus 3/3, which gives me 5/3. So the denominator right now is turning into, let's get a different color going here, v to the 5/3. So this has been replaced with v to the 5/3. But now between my v on top and v on the bottom, I'm going to have to subtract those. So just gonna come up here, do a little more fraction work, and I will take 3/2 and subtract 5/3. So 5/3 versus 3/2. 5/3 is actually bigger, so that's how I'm gonna subtract. 5/3 take away 3/2. My common denominator here is gonna be 6, so I'm gonna multiply this one by 2, this one by 3, and then my new fraction is 10/6 take away 9/6, and when I subtract that, I get 1/6. So that's my new exponent, this 1/6. Now you might have, so I can't talk, trying to figure out where does this v to the 1/6 go. Since 5/3 is bigger than 3/2, I will want that 1/6 to go on the bottom. So when I'm done, I will have v to the 1/6 right down there. All right, that's exponents. Let's move into the check marks, the radicals. So if you're in my class, I call these innies and outies. You multiply the innies together, you multiply the outies together. So we got level 1 and level 2. So the idea, I'm just going to go through level 1 and level 2 and multiply the innies and the outies. So on number 5, I only have one outie of 3, but when I multiply my innies, I get 16. I will be coming back to this problem in a moment. When I go to number 6, I'll multiply my outies and get -6, and my innies, I'll get 36. So again, the innies are what's in the check mark. The outies are what's outside of the check mark. So moving on to number 7, -3 as an outie doesn't have anything to multiply, but I multiply my innies and I get that. And number 8, my outie of -2 has nothing to multiply, and I get 12 when I multiply the innies. Now what you need to do when you multiply, one big rule of radicals, of square roots, is they prefer to have the smallest number inside that check mark. And if it's perfect, they want you to take that innie and make it become an outie. If it's not perfect, then what you would do is try to see, are there factors of your innie that might be perfect. So the reason why 5 and 6 are going to be level 1 problems is because 16 is perfect, it becomes a 4, and now I have 2 outies, and that becomes 12. 36 is perfect, it can become 6, and now I have 2 outies that can multiply into -36. 7, 8 are level 2 problems because 18 is not perfect, but I could break down into factors and then do this. And now I have 2 outies that can multiply into -9 and become a square root of 2. And on this one, I could break 12 down into the factors of 4 and 3. 4 is perfect. And now my outies here can become -4 with the square root of 3. So I realize I'm going fast. Remember, you can stop and rewind and pause the videos. All right, another section will be division. Again, level 1 and level 2. You don't have to do both levels. If you're okay with just the C, you do level 1. If you want the A or B, you do level 1 and level 2. So much like we did here, we'll put the outies together and we'll put the innies together, except here we're using division. But remember, division can work as another way as simplifying a fraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is just divide if I can. So on number 9, I'm going to look at 10 ninths. 10 does not divide by 9, and 10 ninths as a fraction does not simplify. So just leaving it alone for now. Number 10, 3 and 2, the outies can't simplify. 8 and 25 can't simplify 8/25, and I can't take 8 and divide it by 25. So number 11, the 3 has nothing to simplify with, but my innies, 2 can't divide by 3, and 2/3 is a fraction I can't simplify. But on number 12, even though 4 as an outie doesn't have anything to simplify with, 8 and 6, I could divide both of those by 2, and that turns my numerator into a 4, and my denominator into a 3. So that's all I'm looking for first. Now I'm going to go back to the first problem. So the main rule with denominators is they don't like the check mark down on the bottom. Like, don't like this, they don't like this, they don't like this, and they don't like this. So the first thing I notice in my level 1 problems is, you know what, 9's actually perfect, and I can take the square root of it and make it 3. And now I don't have a check mark on the bottom. I'm good to move on. Sorry about that. All right, so on the next one, 25, as it turns out, hey, you know what? That's actually perfect. I can turn that into 5. And maybe you're noticing this 8. So just kind of going along here. 8's not perfect, but it actually does have factors that are perfect. So just moving along here. And then what I can do is work with my outies here. I can get 6 over 10, and then that's a great answer, but maybe this should have actually been a level 2 problem. I can divide both of these by 2, and this is my best answer. So that was actually a little tougher than I thought it was going to be. Number 11, the issue I'm going to run into is I have this check mark in the bottom, and now I have to fix that check mark. So I do that by using a fraction, and whatever this check mark is just going to recopy here. And in fraction world, whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. And then I just like to take this denominator and then the numerator. So my denominator, I have 2 innies that become the square root of 9, which is perfect. And so you fix this issue of not having a square root in the bottom anymore. My numerators, I can actually multiply these. Ooh, shoot, I did not mean to do that. Let me get my little eraser. I meant to highlight that. Give me a moment. All right, when I look at my numerators, I have 2 innies, and they can become 6, and then I'll just bring it over here, and then I just want to realize, you know what, my outies can actually cancel out, so when I'm done, I get the square root of 6. So when I go to the next one, I want to, again, I got that check mark on the bottom, so I'm going to fix it. Again, it's a square root of 3. And this is very coincidental that they are both the square root of 3. So if this had been a 5 in here, I would have put square roots of 5 in my fraction. Anyway, I go through the denominator first, and I'm going to just take care of this. I'm going to get 4. Oh, I don't want that color. 4 times the square root of 9. The square root of 9 is perfect. And now I have 2 outies that can become 12. When I go to my numerator, they're both innies. And actually, maybe you notice that the square root of 4, whoops, where'd it go, is a 2, and now they're not both innies. I would just bring that along, 2 root 3, 2 root 3, 2 root 3, and then here I notice that my outies, whoops, can actually simplify and become 1/6. So I'll tell you, in my opinion, 9, 10, 11, 12 are the toughest part of the whole I Can. If you can get through the rest of it, you should, and you struggle with 9, 10, 11, 12, that's okay. Those are tough problems. All right, let's go to our next set. And actually, I'm going to stop the video because I only get 15 minutes. There will be a part 2 to this in a little bit.